Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is a Monday, and all of our guests today, including Craig Button, brought to you by Basant Motors. Basant is looking to help save you money in 2024. Choose no car payments, no gas payments, or no insurance payments until the summer. No gas payments. You live in Chilliwack, you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, big time.
Get all the info at Basant Motors, BASANT Motors.com. Happy to have them aboard. Same goes for Craig Button, our TSN Scouting Director. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Donnie. How are you?
Good. Back from from working the World Juniors in Sweden, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, Craig, I want to get your reaction to the story that broke today out of Toronto. William Nylander, $11.5 million per season over 8 years. It kicks in next year. Your opinion of that deal?
Well, you know what this is? I'm rubbing my hands together. And this is my best imitation of Elias Pettersson.
Bingo.
$11.5 million for William Nylander means I think we talked on the show. Was he worth 12? I don't think there's any question that Elias Pettersson is worth $12 million. It might be $13 million for what he's capable of doing, tying him up on a long-term contract. And when you consider William Nylander has put himself in an upper echelon of the league, but who's right there with him? It's Elias Pettersson. And I don't think there's any question that Elias Pettersson will get the same deal. Or I shouldn't say the same deal. We'll get at a minimum the same deal, and probably deserving of more than William Nylander. So, you know, when you look at the scenario that teams are confronted with, you're looking at a scenario where a manager, in this case Brad Treliving, has a choice. He can say yes or no. The market price for William Nylander, I think, was pretty much established. It just comes down to the manager now saying yes or no. So Brad said yes. He's got $28 million coming off the cap. The cap's going up by about $4 million. So now when you say yes, it becomes a case of working the calculus to understand, how do I build my team around these players? And we hear a lot, you got to let them go. Okay, given a choice of having a group of players with no star players or a core and trying to build around them, I don't think there's any choice. And the team that's shown that clearly and shown a path is the Vegas Golden Knights. They came in the league in 2017. They didn't have these high draft picks, and then they just went to work. And they said, we're going to be bold. Here's what we're going to do. And they found ways. And I think that's the manager's job. I think that's what has to happen in Toronto and certainly in other places, because finding high-end star quality talent is really hard.
Craig, I know there are a lot of factors when it comes to asking this question, but how does JT Miller feel if Elias Pettersson signs for $12 million a year, and again, I'm not feeling sorry for anybody, and he's making $8 million a year, $4 million a year less?
Well, what I would suggest to JT is maybe he'll want to phone William Nylander and ask how William Nylander dealt with that, being paid $4 million less than Mitch Marner on comparable players. Yeah, I read something today from Ray Ferraro, and Ray Ferraro said his agent told him, when you sign your contract and you're happy, he goes, that's market value at that time. A lot of things can change, but if you're happy when you sign your contract, don't be bemoaning going forward about what you did. You could have waited, you could have sat out, but if you're happy the day you sign your contract, understand that contract is now going to become a lesser contract compared to other players. And I think that certainly there's a lot of underpaid players in the league. JT Miller is one of them. Connor McDavid's another one. And we can go through a lot. Leon Draisaitl, they're underpaid players. And will there be another opportunity for the player? There will be for Draisaitl. There will be for McDavid. Maybe there will be, or maybe there won't be for JT Miller. But I think you have to understand when he signed that this is where I'm happy. This is what I'm happy with. Understanding that the marketplace is going to change. It's like a house. You can sell your house and be very happy about selling your house. But, if the next door neighbor sells in a year and it's for a little bit more, there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that's the case with JT and any other player.
Hey, Craig, I want to ask you about the Canucks right now, third overall in the NHL standings, trade deadline a couple of months away. Everyone's kind of asking what are they going to do at the deadline. Does a management group, when do they, I think the Canucks are not there yet. Do they go big or fine-tune? Like, tell us how that decision is made by a management group heading into the trade deadline.
Well, Rick, what I would tell you is that it's a lot easier when your team's performing at the level that the Vancouver Canucks are performing at. So you're not trying to figure out, how good our team can be. You're trying to figure out how you can make the team stronger. I think the same exact thing happened with the acquisition of Nikita Zadorov. Now, Carson Soucy's healthy. He comes back in the lineup. You're evaluating your team on a team functioning as close to maximum potential as possible. Now you start to look at the other teams in the league. Okay, what would it look like? Who could we be playing against? What could give us a little bit of a boost? And sometimes that boost isn't so much about what I would call a big name player. Sometimes it's about working the lines. And I'll give you an example. The Tampa Bay Lightning, when they went and traded for Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow. Blake Coleman, they got Blake Coleman for Nolan Foote and a first-round draft pick, and they traded a first-round draft pick for Barclay Goodrow. And the Tampa Bay Lightning had been through a period of time where they had performed well, but they had fallen short in critical areas. And certainly at that time, there was some eyebrows raised. Whoa, can you believe they traded Nolan Foote and a first-round pick for Blake Coleman? Can you believe they traded a first-round pick for Barclay Goodrow? But that's exactly the type of player that they needed. That's what they were looking to do to solidify their lineup. I believe that's where Vancouver finds themselves. That's where you want to find yourself at this juncture. Not trying to find your team and figure out what their potential is, knowing what the potential is and going, how do we make it even stronger? I think that's where the focus is. And it's begun. It has begun, and it's begun in earnest. Teams, I know the salary cap and, more days closer to the trade deadline affords you a little bit more flexibility. But the teams are in full force now trying to evaluate, okay, what's the strength of our team? Where can we make it stronger? And what are the potential possibilities?
Craig, it is January the 8th, and the Winnipeg Jets are the number one team in the NHL. I don't know if you called that in the summer. I don't know if anybody would have called that in the summer, but man, oh man, are these guys playing good hockey.
They are. I thought that they were capable of being a playoff team. They were a playoff team last year. But when you look at the way they're playing really well defensively. Obviously, Connor Hellebuck is a strong player, but they got a lot of depth in their lineup. And Adam Lowry called it at the beginning of the season. He said, the three players we acquired from LA are not as good as Pierre-Luc Dubois individually, but we're a better team by having those three players. I think a couple of under-the-radar moves last year by Kevin Cheveldayoff are also paying big dividends. Nemesnikov and Niederreiter being acquired. They're really good players. So that's 5 forwards that you've added. Yes, Pierre-Luc Dubois goes out. Blake Wheeler goes out. But you've added 3 more players with the subtraction of the other 2, net 3, and that helps your team be better. I don't think it's much different than what the Vancouver Canucks have done. Last year, trading for Philip Roenick, that was a real strong step in the right direction. Then you sign Cole, then you sign Soucy, more competitiveness. You make a really good trade for Sam Lafferty that gives you more of that depth. Then you trade for Nikita Zadorov. And Rick, it continues to go back. Does it have to be big names? They have the big names. They have the really good players. Yeah. And Winnipeg had them. Tampa Bay had them. Vancouver has them. It's about building your team out. And I think that that's exactly what the Vancouver Canucks have done. And I think that Winnipeg is a really good team because they're more balanced, more deep. Same with the Vancouver Canucks. And the Vegas Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup with exactly that model. And that's the model that I think works.
And quickly, Craig, sorry to do this to you, but you're back from Sweden. The Americans win the World Juniors. What are the Americans doing right when it comes to developing young hockey players?
Well, they've exposed them at earlier stages of the game to high-level competition. It starts with the National Team Development Program. I mean, that was the brainchild of trying to bring together a lot of disparate regions. And when I say disparate in terms of New England had prep school. Mm-hmm. Minnesota had high school hockey. Michigan had club hockey. And so you had all these different bodies of hockey. Now they come together in one. The USHL has taken massive steps forward with the quality of coaching. And so now these players are competing at younger ages, not just in high school and trying to cobble together a team to see how they do in the World Junior. Now they're together and they have a lot of familiarity with it. And like everywhere in the world, skill is a big opportunity to advance your individual game and your team game. And that's what they've done. But in the last 12 years, Canada has 5 gold medals at the World Junior. USA has 4. Finland has 3. It is an international game, and the quality of competition is high. You have to expose your players. I'll finish with this real quick. Talking to the Swedish coaches, they're bringing their players over to North America now at younger ages, at 16 and 17 and 18, because they want to expose their players to the challenges of high-level competition. They feel that in Sweden, they don't get the same level of competition. So we're seeing the advancement not only in the U.S., but we're seeing it in Sweden. We've seen it in Finland. I'm also seeing it in Czechia and Slovakia. That is just great for hockey. It's not going to be ruled by 1 or 2 countries. Certainly, Canada goes into every tournament expecting to win and wanting to win. But that's not a reality anymore when it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and you look at the Canucks roster, I think they're thankful for that quality American development. Craig, a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 days, we thank you so much for this. We'll talk to you next week.
Always my pleasure. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
You bet. Nice to have you back on Canadian soil.